Hey YouTube, welcome to episode 10 of Firewood processor build. In this episode, just finish up some odds and ends and do a couple test runs. I don't know if you, it might have been the previous episode or the one before. I was having an issue with how much run out was in this clutch. Still not happy with the way it's tracking, but I think it has to do with it being unlocked. I just know for sure that the PTO shaft off the engine that's running true, so here I'm just doing all the wiring. I ran the wiring from the switch and then all my solenoids all to one point. And that's basically like a junction box. I think it was for trailer wiring or something like that. So I just used that. It has a lid and everything that goes on it. It just made it easier to tie everything into one spot. So here's something I noticed. I was just checking out, testing the electronics. With the saw engaged, so basically the switch turned on for the saw, which closes the solenoid for the in-feed. The in-feed will work normal speed in reverse, like right there. So basically, the solenoid's closed because the saw's on, which will prevent the in-feed from feeding towards the saw, but it returns the normal speed of it in reverse. So I don't get that. I'm not too worried about it, but here I'm just working on the dash. This is some aluminum shelving out of a like a step van that was scrapped. So I'm just trying to use that as best I can, and I think it'll work. I probably won't do the whole console this winter. That might be a spring project, but I at least wanted to get the dash part on and get all my controls where I needed them. Basically, long term, this will probably be what will be the piece where the controls come up through. I kind of lined it up just to see if it would work out and cover everything as I needed it to do. So this piece was a piece I cut off, and I basically stuck that up and welded that on as where I'd put all my switches and everything like that. And my dad had come down on a Saturday, and I didn't really break out the camera, but I was going to try to get it running before he left, which I didn't, but this is the new belt tensioner. It at least allows me to get the pulley off if I need to. So I got it outside and did a few test runs. First problem I ran into, like if that log would have kept going crooked, it would have basically fell down in a bad spot. So First thing I have to do is try to fill in between on the log lift. That way if a log does start to go crooked, it can't fall down into any spot that I won't be able to get it out of. I do another test run after this one, so I apologize for the camera position on this one. It wasn't, definitely not in a good spot. There you can, a little bit back there, you can see I put the log clamp in the float function, and then that roller wheel was able to freewheel. So it kind of keeps a little bit of tension on the log, plus it allows you to move it with that tension on. So I'm glad that worked out the way it did. On this cut, I stalled it out. I hadn't adjusted the pressure relief valve yet. But I at least learned some things just from that little bit of log that I cut up. Here I'm installing a volt gauge just because I had it laying around. So I figured why not. Here I added a switch. So basically, if I turn this switch off, it'll bypass the saw switch, but I can still at least move the saw. So, and the reason I did that was because when the engine stalled out, without the saw back up in the position of the upright position, as soon as I would have tried to start the engine, the saw would have tried to engage right away. So that switch just basically bypasses the clutch and everything else. Here I'm just cutting the remote throttle cable and clutch or choke cable down to the length I needed for those. Another thing I learned from that first test run is I wasn't getting enough oil. It wasn't really oiling the way I wanted it to, so I had read previously that a lot of guys have used these 12-volt fuel pumps, so I decided to try that out, and as you can see when I run it, it will actually work pretty good. But then I did leave the ball turn or the ball valve in so that I can regulate it. This tank I ordered, it was in metric. The numbers sounded like they were big enough to, it was a decent sized tank. Obviously it's definitely not. I'm just gonna live with it for now and try to figure out something different with the tank down the road. Here I'm working on a measurement for the cut. It's just, this is a solid piece of steel, and I have another piece of tubing that went over top of it. I did mess up on these, on the holes I drilled in the solid piece. I actually made those 8 inches apart. I'm not sure why. So my main cuts are going to be 22 inches, and I wanted an adjustment to 16, but I screwed up there. I'll have to drill another hole. My adjustment's actually to 14. And then the piece I welded to the tube, I think it was actually off a Bowflex I scrapped. But it's like a spring-loaded detent along that line. I can pull it out and slide it around, and it'll lock into place. And then I just welded basically a plow guide on the end, which I'm not. This probably will end up changing. I don't care for the plow guide because it kind of, if you bend it far enough, it stays where it was bent. Kind of wanted something more that would spring back. With the dash piece in there, you can kind of see the two joystick valves were straight up and down. Well, I couldn't push them all the way towards the dash because it would hit. So you can see there I bent them a little bit. I got my 4-way wedge. I decided to cut, I think, about 1.5 inches off the bottom of this. Maybe in hindsight I shouldn't have. I thought it was a good idea at the time. With my other test cuts using it, it worked out fine, but possibly I should have just left it the way it was. Here's gonna be the tray coming off for the splits. At this point, I'm starting to come down with a head cold, and I probably shouldn't have been doing the work because my head was definitely foggy. But my plan was the next weekend was to try to actually start cutting some wood. So I kind of muscled through it. It's not going to be the prettiest thing, but it works. I use these two pieces just as kind of the base for the hinge part because I wanted to be able to hinge up out of the way when I'm moving the trailer, so it didn't have like a ton of stuff hanging off the back that could potentially hit something. And then the grate part's going to be all 1/2-inch Schedule 40 pipe. The white Schedule 40 pipe was old air piping, or it was used for old compressed air piping, and it was galvanized inside and out. So even when I did clean it off, it was just causing me all kinds of issues. Pretty much why I had both doors open, even though it was a little bit of a chilly day. Trying not to breathe as much of that crap as I could. But you can see how it folds up out of the way, and that's basically what I was going with. And then for bracing to support it, I used some of that 3/4 square tubing that I had for my old in-feed chain guide. And I just kind of cut angles on both ends and then welded a piece of angle on the bottom, and then that just goes onto the bottom part of the beam, and basically to hold the tray in part are in place. For kind of grips, I guess you could say, on the push plate, I think this was some 2.5 or 3-inch square tubing. I just cut pieces off way too long. I think they're probably close to 1/2 inch, which ends up causing me problems. We'll see a little later. So I welded them in. And here's another test run. I'm still gun shy with the log lift, so I didn't even lift this log completely all the way up. Even though this one probably would have been fine going in. I was just worried with the weight of it to have it slide one way or another and then get stuck somehow and cause damage. So I already know I need to do something with the log lift. Another thing I noticed with the engine is it, even when it's hot, you gotta all but choke it to get it to run or to start. And I did find some information online on how you can adjust the carburetor, so I do want to work on that. The chainsaw itself is scary. I did some research on that as far as the components I had bought, and the bar I'm using, I think the maximum sprocket size they recommend for that is a 12 tooth. I'm running a 14. If the bar comes up fast enough, it'll actually pitch the chain off, especially if it's kind of loose, and I think right now I have it over tightened. So I did order a bar, same length, but it's for a 14 to 16 tooth sprocket. And I think I'm going to either have to do some modifications to the bar or to my adjuster that I built for the chainsaw part, because it has a different mounting end on it. But I think I'll end up doing something to the bar. It shouldn't be a huge deal to get that taken care of. The teeth that I put on the splitter plate, I actually already took care of this, but I ended up cutting them down as close to the plate as I could, because I think pretty much every log that fell down in there, it fell like that, and that I didn't want to happen. I don't want, ideally I want, my dad's mostly going to probably be running this while I'm keeping the splits coming off and the logs going on, so I don't want it to be something you have to constantly mess with. So hopefully I cut them down far enough. I think that's about all that. I noticed there were some problems that I was running into. Hopefully the next video will be probably more cutting. I'm going to do the log lift, fix that part. I don't know if I'll get around to the chainsaw bar part of it, because I don't think that's supposed to show up till the Friday before the weekend, and ideally I'm hoping to cut some wood Saturday. I'm a little far behind. It's when it starts to get fall is when I like to start cutting wood to get ready for next year, but I'm a little far behind there. And it's mainly because of building this, but hopefully now that I'm pretty much close to done with it, that means I'll be able to get way far ahead because I'll be able to do it much quicker. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I'm not sure when the next video will be out, but I'll try at least get some good video of it running and working. Hopefully there won't be too many problems, but there might be. So thanks for watching.